It's Michael Ross of the Italian American Week. Thank you so much for being here.
You are so welcome. I'm so excited.
Managing editor of the Westport Playhouse. So we're going to talk about your professional life first, and we're going to talk about how Italian you are. So how many years at Westport?
7 years now at Westport.
And give me the history leading up to Westport.
Sure. It was many times in Connecticut, so I know you from my earlier days in New Haven.
I've been around forever. 30 years almost, right?
Oh, I think I've got a few years on you. Both in, that I ran Long Wharf Theater here in New Haven for a number of years.
Right.
And worked at Hartford Stage in Hartford, and now at the Playhouse in Westport, and between that in Baltimore, actually running a theater down there.
A lot of things. So where did theater start? Did it start in your Italian household?
I wish, right? It should have, right?
Nobody was an actor?
No, nobody was an actor.
Everybody was talking with
Nobody's in the arts. We did not grow up listening to opera like you would have thought we would have. No, it was, in fact, nobody really sort of liked theater at all in my family necessarily. But we are an Italian family from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and there's a sort of section of Milwaukee that all the Italians come out of, the south side of Milwaukee.
So Sicilian, you're Sicilian.
Sicilian, yes, Sicilian.
All right,
on top
and
of
we
that.
just talked about this. Your name is Ross, but not really.
But not really.
What is it?
The interesting thing was, it was actually Radosta is the name. It's from a small village outside of Palermo. My great-grandfather came to the country and came to Milwaukee as a Radosta, Radosta, I have to say that right, came as that. But in the 1930s, my grandfather, while my father was alive, actually changed the name to Ross, so undefined and whatever, and left the Catholic Church at the same time.
Interesting.
And nobody knows why we left the Catholic Church. So I did not grow up Catholic at all.
So you have to do some digging.
We've done some digging, and we still can't find that answer.
Oh, well, see.
There seemed to be some bad moment along the way.
Okay.
And at one moment, there's actually a document at the Milwaukee City Hall that actually changes my great-grandfather from Italian to Irish. Now, for many years, he's listed as, because he was a city employee for a number of years, he's listed. And back then, you would actually list your ethnicity on the roll call or whatever it was. And for years, he's listed as Italian, Italian, Italian. All of a sudden, he becomes Irish for a short period of time.
That is a great story.
So that, I mean, who knows what.
So you didn't grow up Catholic?
I did not.
And you grew up with the last name of Ross?
I did.
Kind of Irish.
Right.
Whatever.
Exactly.
But now, you just came back from Italy, and tell me about this trip. And, and so, see, it's in your blood.
Oh,
right?
it is so in my blood. I mean, if anybody's been to Italy or you do that, have you been to Italy before?
I have.
I mean, it's wonderful for anybody, obviously. It's just a whole different culture, a whole way of life, a whole way of just waking up in the morning and, just enjoying life. But I think it is different, slightly different, probably for anybody from wherever their family came from, whatever their DNA is, right? Knowing that part of my DNA is Italian, I get there and I am so happy every moment. From the moment I wake up to whatever we're doing during the day, and I'm so comfortable. And I don't speak any Italian, other than I say ciao bello or ciao bella a whole lot.
Ciao is good.
Ciao is good, and bella, bola, whatever. Everybody's like so happy and so comfortable speaking to you. I love Italians that, even though you don't speak the language, they just keep talking.
And it's great. You get a little table wine and some cannolis, and you're all set.
And you sit.
What did you do in Italy when you were there?
So this was a special trip with a dear friend of mine from 30-some years ago. When I first worked in the professional theater, I moved to Houston, Texas, and worked there with a dear friend of mine who's Mexican-American. She is Catholic. And she has gone through some troubles over the years and she hasn't had a chance, an opportunity to really travel. And so after the death of both of her parents, I said to her, let's go somewhere special. Where do you want to go? And she said, I want to go to Italy. And I, of course, which I loved. And I said, I would love to take you to Italy. I said, when and what do you want to do? And she said, I want to be in Rome for Easter. And I want to go to St. Peter's and be at the Easter Mass. And I said, all right, let's figure that out. And we were in Rome for Easter. We didn't get to the Easter Mass, which was, if you know this year, pouring rain in Rome on that day. But the night before, we got into St. Peter's for the Pope's Easter Vigil Mass, which is incredibly moving in so many ways. And not even though I didn't grow up Catholic, everybody I knew was Catholic, because a lot of the Italian families I knew.
The splendor of St. Peter's is
that alone. And
incredible.
And the people from, and maybe that weekend, whatever time, I'm sure you're in there, and I'm sure for a Mass with the Pope is just spectacular any time. But to be there for that Vigil Mass on that Easter weekend, and what impressed me so much was not only this Pope is so wonderful in so many ways, and the energy of that, but there were people from all over the world, of all sizes, all shapes, all ethnicities. I mean, it was just the world coming together for a mass to really, and this in particular was to, the big dramatic moment of this mass was the baptismal of refugees from different countries. And it was so moving and so beautiful, even though I don't know Latin all that well, and I don't speak Italian. So
it's a moment in time. So you spilled out of St. Peter's, and did you see the countryside, and did you go to Tuscany?
We did. So we went from 3 nights in Rome to 3 nights right outside of Florence, in the countryside a little bit, in Tuscany, and then 3 nights in Venice, and finished up there.
So favorite part, besides the food?
Well, oh my goodness. Just eat your way through Italy constantly, and anywhere. Now, I have certainly gone to very nice and very fancy restaurants in Italy over time, but you can also just walk into any sort of, storefront restaurant of any sort. You're still going to get a great meal, and we did.
So you're from Milwaukee. Somewhere along the line, through all these theaters that you go through in your career, you end up in Connecticut, which is about 3 million people, which is arguably about a third Italian.
Right.
So you come here, and you feel that around you as you...
Especially here in New Haven. Now, I didn't think about it as much up in Hartford. There is certainly an Italian population in Hartford.
Sure.
For some reason, when I got here to New Haven, it is so celebrated here in so many ways. I really missed the vowel not being at the end of my name when I was living here. I kept thinking...
You can always add it,
Well,
Michael.
we kept also thinking with my... Oh, it was very funny. While I was in Rome, they registered me at the hotel as Michael Rossi, which I just left. I said, I love that.
So you
I'm
can
just
do
going to
an
go.
I
And
or
they
an
just
O?
kept saying, Signor Rossi, Signor Rossi. I'm like, yes, fine with me. But I have 3 brothers, and so this is the, and so it's still Ross is the family name for all 4 of us.
Sure.
And years ago, we did talk about it, and when we were in our 20s, saying, here's a moment before we all get married, before we all have kids or people have kids, let's think about changing the name back to the family name, which would have been so beautiful. And for whatever reason, we just never got all together to do that. But I would have loved that.
Now, your dad's Italian.
So my dad's Italian.
Growing up in an Italian household, so mom was not Italian. She was...
No, so mom was Danish. So I like to say, so being Italian and Scandinavian, I like to say, I'm both emotional and stoic all at the same time.
Well, I'm Swedish, so I get that.
Oh, very much.
So children in many of the we stayed quiet, so what influences from a Sicilian dad? And he wasn't first to this country, he's first generation,
No, so
maybe?
he's...
Second generation?
Second generation, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So what remembrances do you have
Food,
about that?
food being such an important, and gathering, family gathering and food, those are very Italian, though they're very other cultures as well, obviously. But I remember how important that always is, eating and spending time eating. That's what I love about also
The
going
lingering.
Oh, is that the best?
Did your Danish
you have
mother...
to beg for a check, a bill in an Italian restaurant. You have to beg, and a few times.
And it's lovely.
Don't ever stop once, because they're not going to bring it to you.
Did your dad teach your mom to make gravy or sauce?
Oh, no.
Did she ever do that?
Not.
Because when I grew up in the Midwest, we didn't make it. We just dumped it out of the can. So you don't do that here.
That would be, no, certainly not here.
No.
Not here in the Italian community.
No, you would not.
Do that. No, absolutely
So
not.
what kinds of things did you bump up against being a Midwesterner, and I grew up in South Bend, Indiana too, where the Italian influences came into either theater or your life or food or...
I think it's that joy of life. I think that, where we grew up, Milwaukee is actually known much more as a German population, or Polish. And we were on the south, when we grew up then was the sort of southwest side of the city. And that was very Polish. Everybody on our block was Polish. Now, they were all Catholic. So the funny thing was, they were all Catholic, and they were all Polish. We were the only Italian family on the block.
/Irish.
/Irish.
Danish.
Whatever we thought we were. And we weren't Catholic. So who knows what that all meant. But, we were loud. Whereas everybody, there was a lot of, especially on the Danish side of my family, there's a lot of quiet, well-mannered people who are just lovely and won't certainly talk about anything emotional. And here was the Italian side of the family, all just like, you couldn't get a word in.
I can remember when I first moved to Connecticut, so almost 30 years ago. I grew up in South Bend, Indiana, as I said, and we had spaghetti. You had one kind of pasta. And I can remember going into a grocery store in Connecticut and seeing 9,000 types. Oh, they were shaped like bow ties. And there was this, and there, it was like a wonderland to me. All the types of pasta.
Oh my
I mean,
goodness.
do you ever remember that coming from Milwaukee? And
No, to be honest, my mother couldn't cook. She was Scandinavian. Sorry, not to offend any Scandinavians.
But my Swedish grandmother could bake.
Oh,
Did
that's
she
true.
bake?
No, my mother couldn't. No, she was a
All right,
career
so
woman.
you
She
had
could've-
to start all over again.
Oh, complete. You know, and it was really here in New Haven that I more so. Now, my older brother, his name is Tony. He has always thought he's much more Italian than the rest of us. Though, you know, his DNA doesn't have any more than the rest of us. But for some reason, he has always been very Italian. I never really thought about all that much. Didn't grow up until I came here, and I think the combination of the Italian American community here in New Haven. I lived in Worcester Square. I frequented, of course, well, Pepe's and Sally's, of course, but Libby's. I lived in Libby's. Like,
Who doesn't want to live there?
Who doesn't want to live there,
right?
right?
And get the cannolis
Oh
and,
my God,
and
the
then little
family
coffee
and the whole family atmosphere and everything else. Joanne and her sister, just wonderful, wonderful people. So I think I celebrated that a whole lot more and found those roots being here and in Italian restaurants and Italian neighborhoods more than I ever had before, I think.
And you have a lot of friends that are in New Haven that
Oh,
are probably
yes.
Italian. As
Oh,
we
very
said,
much,
a
very
third of
much.
this state
Right,
is
right.
Italian,
And you'll
which is awesome. And
Right.
my friends too. And they're joyous people. They talk.
Oh, yes. Oh.
And it's like watching a movie every time, and I love it because I grew up in a pretty stoic. Any stories that you want to talk to me about, either a dinner at Sally's or Pepe's, or a moment in time that you
I would
remember?
add, you just made me think about, you know, again, that for whoever is, wherever you come from, your DNA that you carry, I do think we carry it with us. Those cultures, whether you even grew up with your parents really celebrating that culture of your ethnicity, I think you have it in you somehow. So again, you can discover it later if you do. I actually went back to Sicily. I went to Sicily.
Oh, you did?
Oh,
To-
yes.
to the
We
family
went-
homestead,
Well,
or-
we missed it.
What do you mean you
We
missed
tried, but we
couldn't
kind of missed
find
it. Well, we didn't know enough information now. We do know
okay.
now, but that's
So
only 2 years ago.
You'll have to go back now.
I know. Now I know
it?
exactly.
Okay, so you
where it
go
is.
to Sicily and you find what?
Well, I went with my older brother. So
Is this Tony?
yeah, this is
Okay.
Tony. And for my 50th birthday, I decided that that's what I wanted to do. Is I wanted to go with my older brother, who had not been to Europe and had not been to Italy, to go with him to Italy, and for us ultimately to end up in Sicily, in Palermo, and try to do a little bit of the roots sort of tour of what it was all about. The one wonderful thing we discovered. Now, my brother, Tony, loves ice cream. Like, who doesn't? But my brother, Tony, and as it turned out, my brother, Tony, eats ice cream for lunch half the time.
So are we talking gelato or ice cream?
Well, here, it's ice cream.
Okay.
We get over there, of course, it's gelato, like the best. And Gioletti's in Rome. Have you ever been to
I
Gioletti's?
haven't. Give me
4
the
times
address
I've-
when
I
we
will
end
give
this.
that is
Okay.
like the best. Even as I was this time
There's a
getting
place
to
in
Rome.
Florence, though, you should go.
Really?
Yes.
Why didn't you tell me? I was just there.
Because we haven't spent enough time together. Anyway, so your brother's eating ice cream.
So my brother does this every day for lunch, right? And we get there, and so it becomes that we have to have gelato for lunch. Even we're in Rome first, then Positano, another unbelievably gorgeous place on the planet. And then we go to Sicily. And with Sicily, we have a guide that's with us for the few days we're in Sicily and taking us around and all. And so we say to him, we want to stop and have gelato at lunch. And he says, really? And we said, yes, would that be okay? And he goes, absolutely. And he takes us to a place where they basically put the gelato, I don't even know what it's called, on a bun. I kept saying,
Like
it's
on a hamburger bun?
On a hamburger bun, yeah, basically. I think there's a fancier word, I'm sure,
Sure.
for the bread than that. But put it on this hamburger bun. And he turns us and says, and we say on the bun, that is so funny. There's a name for it, I can't remember. And he said, oh yeah, Sicilians eat this all the time for lunch.
I love that.
And I thought, we are Sicilian. Obviously, my brother's been doing it for years without knowing that was a very Sicilian thing to actually do.
All right. Well, Michael Ross, I could talk to you forever. Or Rossi, or Rosso, or whatever
Yeah,
you might
use any
change
of
it
the-
to.
Right, add a vowel.
Managing editor of Westport Playhouse. So glad to have you at the Italian
I love
table.
this little cafe.
Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you. Ciao, Bella.
Made trivial pursuits, but one this end goes extra. Spend all night kissing and the bottle's right here, then who else is missing? Got a little sidetracked if I'm so wishing to find the keys to the door, but it's also a metaphor. Need to keep locked in the grocery store, but mine, just to save time. Skip right ahead to the last ride. The harder we look, the less we can see. Don't you know, you know, you know that you